You ever watch your whole life collapse in one sentence? Mine came in an email, no subject, no salutation. Just 12 cold words that snapped the air out of my lungs. Clear your workplace by end of day. HR has your documents. I sat frozen at my desk, staring at the screen. My father had died 2 days earlier. I was still numb. The grief hadn't even had time to settle when this gut punch landed. Name's Nathan Carter. I'm 39, senior logistics operator at Summit Edge, or I was, I guess. I'd been there for 15 years. Built my team from scratch. I knew every route, every delay, every trick to keep the system flowing. When something broke, they called me. When a client threatened to walk, I talked them down. I never missed a deadline, never backed down from a hard call. But apparently, I was only as good as the next wave of creative restructuring. I clicked the attachment. The termination form was already signed. Not by my supervisor, but by Elena Carter. My wife. Head of HR, same last name. Same dinner table. Same bed. Or so I thought. She hadn't said a word. No warning. No explanation. Just cold HR language and a quiet knife between the ribs. Dean Wallace, our new VP of Operations, a slick-talking, idea-spewing guy with an ego wider than the distribution floor, had co-signed the document. Dean and I had butted heads from day one. He wanted speed over structure. Vision over discipline. I was the stone in his river. And apparently he found a way to go around me. But what hit hardest wasn't the job. It was her. Elena. My wife of 10 years. I walked past her glass office after packing my box. She didn't look up. Not once. Just kept clicking her mouse like I didn't exist. I stood there long enough to feel the heat rising in my chest, then I turned and left. But something about it didn't sit right. It felt planned. Coordinated. And it turns out I was right. Because 2 days later, I overheard something that turned my stomach and burned through whatever was left of my trust. Dean wasn't just my new boss. He was my wife's lover. I didn't believe it at first. The rumor came from Darren, one of my old dispatch leads. He grabbed a drink with a couple guys from facilities, just venting about the layoffs. That's when someone dropped the bomb. Dean Wallace had been seen at Elena's condo. Late. More than once. Car parked overnight. Her Tesla in the garage. His Audi right behind it. You didn't hear it from me, Darren had said. But people are talking, Nate. I laughed it off. Kind of. Tried to. But the laugh got stuck somewhere in my throat. I didn't want to believe it, not her. Elena was cold, calculated, sure. But she was also my wife. Or so I thought. We'd built a life. Traveled. Survived family deaths. Late-night wine and Netflix. Sunday pancakes. Whispered I love yous before falling asleep. But looking back, the signs were there. She stopped texting back. Came home later. Talked less. Her eyes, when they did meet mine, were glass. Empty. Like she was somewhere else already. Turns out she was. I decided not to confront her right away. My old man used to say, be like a stone near the river. Let the current show you where it's headed before you step in. So I waited. Watched. She didn't know I still had access to our shared cloud, something she'd apparently forgotten when she started syncing her work phone. That's when I saw it. A photo in a hidden folder. Him. Shirtless. Holding a wine glass. In my backyard. Another picture, the two of them at a resort in Montana. Timestamped for the same week she told me she was at a recruiting seminar in Seattle. That night, I sat alone in my apartment because I sure as hell wasn't going back home and scrolled through the images. Each one another nail in the coffin. But then came the real betrayal. In a forwarded thread I found buried in her HR folder, I saw it clearly spelled out. Dean had pushed for my removal. And Elena? She hadn't just signed the order. She'd initiated it. She wrote the damn thing. It wasn't business. It was execution. She gave the man she was sleeping with the head of the man she married. And that's when I stopped mourning. That's when I started planning. You'd think getting betrayed by your wife and fired by your company would leave a man broken. But for me, it lit a fuse. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to show up at their house and make a scene. That's not my style. I'd spent my whole life solving problems under pressure. Logistics is chess on wheels, timing, leverage, movement. You want chaos? Fine. But I'll be the one who directs it. And I wasn't going to play fair. That night, I called an old contact, Marcus Lynn, regional director over at Titan Freight and Logistics. We'd met at a transportation conference years back, hit it off over bourbon, and shared stories of system failures we'd turned into wins. He tried to poach me before. This time, I let him. He didn't even hesitate. Name your price. And bring the fire with you. What I didn't expect was how fast the pieces started falling into place. Within 48 hours, I had a corner office and a blank slate. I had the green light to build my own division. New hires. Total autonomy. Guess who I called first? My crew. I went down the list, the quiet ones, the smart ones, the loyal ones. The ones Dean overlooked. The ones Elena never bothered to learn by name. They didn't hesitate either. Summit Edge is circling the drain, Nate, one of them said. You just gave us a lifeboat. With every phone call, my new house grew stronger, and theirs? Weaker. But revenge isn't just about strength. It's about timing. So I waited again. Like a stone. Let Summit Edge settle into the illusion that they'd won. Let Elena get comfortable thinking she'd gotten away with it. Let Dean parade his ego around the office like he'd conquered something. All while I moved pieces quietly in the dark. The first real blow came a week later. One of our legacy clients, a $12 million contract, sent a termination letter to Summit Edge. They didn't give a reason. Just a name. We're following Nathan. The next morning, another client jumped. Then 2 more. And still, I wasn't finished. Because I hadn't hit Elena's pressure point yet. That came the moment I sent her a simple and signed email from a private address. You didn't just betray your husband. You destroyed your safety net. And now you're standing on glass. You know that moment when the silence before a storm gets too quiet? That's what happened the morning after I sent the email. Elena didn't respond. Not directly. But I knew her well enough to read the signs. Her calendar, which I still had shadow access to, suddenly blocked out 3 emergency meetings. Dean's name was on all of them. That night, I got a call from someone unexpected, Jess Mitchell, procurement lead at Summit Edge. We'd worked together on several high-priority routing crises over the years. She was smart, tough, and always kept her head down. But I could hear the tension in her voice. Whatever you're doing, it's working, she said. People are panicking. Upper execs are pointing fingers. They lost Global Sync, and now Ortega Trucking's threatening to walk. I stayed quiet. Nate, she said, Elena's telling people you stole confidential data. That you violated non-competes. I finally spoke. Let them panic. Off the record, Jess said, her voice lowering, everyone knows what really happened. We saw her with Dean. Months ago. Nobody said anything, but it wasn't a secret. HR whispered it. Finance covered for them. Why call me? I asked. Because Summit Edge is dying. And you were the only person who ever fought to keep it breathing. Whatever you're doing, don't stop. Just be smart. She hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time. Not because I needed more proof, I already had enough of that. But because Jess represented something I hadn't expected. Quiet loyalty. The kind that sticks around long enough to choose sides when the tide turns. And the tide was turning. At Titan, my new team was growing fast. Half of them were former Summit Edge staff. The rest? Hand-picked talent I'd scouted years ago but couldn't hire back then. Yeah? I could offer them what Summit Edge never did: freedom, respect, purpose. We didn't just build a department. We built a weapon. Meanwhile, back at Summit, the leaks were multiplying. Departments stretched thin. Inventory misrouted. Clients confused. All because I'd built the original system from the ground up and they'd never bothered to learn how it actually worked. Dean's ego couldn't debug chaos. Elena's control didn't scale under pressure. And me? I just watched. Calculated. Waited. Until I got a text from one of my old junior ops guys. They're requesting your system passwords. Nobody knows the back end. It's falling apart. I replied with one word. Good. 3 days after my team at Titan signed our 3rd multi-million-dollar deal, I got word that Summit Edge had triggered an internal audit. Not because they wanted to. Because they had to. 3 clients had terminated in 1 week. One of them, a European medical distributor, cited incompatibility with new Summit protocols as the reason. That was polite corporate speak for, you broke the system Nathan built and now we don't trust you. Elena and Dean? Still radio silent. But the silence was telling. Because suddenly their names stopped appearing on internal communications. And a friend in compliance, another quiet ally, forwarded me something. An internal memo. No signature. But the source code on the PDF told me all I needed. It originated from Elena's laptop. We are initiating disciplinary review protocols for external sabotage and unauthorized access to proprietary systems. Legal will follow up. Translation? They were trying to build a case against me. Problem was, I never touched their systems. I didn't have to. They were imploding on their own. The team I took with me? They were the arteries. The lifeblood. And when they left, the body bled out. One of my guys, Tony, was the only one who understood how the routing algorithm prioritized cold chain preservation. Another, Dana, was the only person who could decode our foreign customs integration process. I didn't take tools. I took brains. Summit Edge had code but no compass. Ships with no navigation. Meanwhile, at Titan, our numbers were climbing. Fast. I didn't just recreate the system I'd built at Summit, I made it better. Leaner. Tighter. And now I had full creative control. No one undermining my ideas. No more steering committees that went in circles. But my focus wasn't on success yet. Not entirely. Because part of me still wanted something more than wins. I wanted truth. So I called in the last card I'd been holding. I reached out to Nolan Black, an old supplier rep who now worked as a contract investigator for corporate compliance. I handed him everything I'd collected: metadata, timestamped conversations, off-book travel receipts, calendar overlaps between Elena and Dean, meetings that didn't exist on official logs, billing inconsistencies, anomalies only someone inside would have noticed. He read through the file and looked up at me. "This isn't just betrayal," he said. "This is premeditated professional theft. They didn't just fire you, they rewrote your legacy and sold the pieces." I nodded. "And now," I said, "we rewrite the ending." It didn't take long for Nolan to dig up what I suspected. Elena and Dean weren't just sleeping together. They were reconstructing my work, passing it off as their own in pitch decks to Summit's board. They renamed my logistics strategy as the Wallace realignment model. Cute. Nolan uncovered at least 5 internal presentations where Dean took credit for cost-saving measures I developed, tactics that weren't even implemented yet, just parked in the sandbox code I left behind. And Elena? She approved every one of them as head of HR. Suddenly, their ambition made sense. I wasn't a liability to them. I was competition. They couldn't outwork me. So they erased me, then wore my skin like a mask in front of the board. But masks crack under pressure, especially when someone's watching. I didn't go to the board. Not yet. I went to Titan's PR team. Together, we launched a campaign under the radar, subtle, just enough to stir the waters. Press releases highlighting innovative supply chain solutions created by former Summit Edge talent. Quiet interviews in industry blogs. Quotes from clients praising the new systems we'd implemented at Titan. No accusations. No names. Just enough noise to make the Summit board wonder, why does this sound familiar? And then, just to twist the knife, I arranged a small conference in Dallas. Logistics Week? We weren't even supposed to speak until one of our new clients offered me their keynote spot. My talk? Operational integrity, when systems remember what people forget. It went viral in the industry. You know what happens when people start whispering? Board members start asking questions. And when questions lead to discovery, liars start to sweat. Dean must have felt the heat first, because 3 days after that talk, I got a text. Unknown number. "Nathan, we should talk. Man to man. This doesn't have to get messy." I stared at the message for a long minute, then replied with 2 words. "Too late." Because the truth doesn't knock before it walks in. And for Elena and Dean, it was already standing in their office, waiting. Dean showed up outside Titan HQ the next morning. Unannounced. No security clearance. Just stood there in a blazer too tight for a man unraveling, sunglasses hiding the sweat in his eyes. 5 minutes, he said when I met him in the lobby. I took him to a side hallway. Neutral ground. No windows. Just drywall and truth. "You made your point," he started, tone low, rehearsed. "I get it. You're pissed. But you're also not stupid. You know where this goes if we keep escalating." I folded my arms. "You worried about escalation, Dean? That wasn't your tone when you orchestrated my termination and helped yourself to my architecture." His jaw tightened. "It wasn't personal. It was my wife." That shut him up. I leaned in, voice even. "You think I'm doing this for revenge?" "No. I'm doing this to make sure you never do it to anyone else. You and Elena didn't just break vows. You broke integrity. And you built a castle on stolen stone." He ran a hand through his hair. "All right. Look. Off the record? Elena's freaking out. She knows it's over if this hit's legal. She's willing to step back. Quit quietly. Take the hit. I'll restructure, keep things calm. You win. Just back off." There it was. The panic. The deal. But they didn't get to name the terms anymore. "You ever hear what happens when a river shifts course?" I asked him, keeping my voice calm. "Whole towns get flooded. Bridges collapse. You think pulling Elena out is enough to stop what's coming?" Dean tried to smirk. It looked forced. "I'll tell you what you don't understand," I added, stepping closer. "This isn't about you anymore. This is about every client you lied to. Every boardroom you manipulated. Every person you threw under the bus while you were sleeping your way up the chain." His bravado cracked. Just for a second. I'm not just bringing you down, I said. I'm showing them what happens when you bet against someone with nothing left to lose. Dean didn't have a response. He just walked out. An hour later, a Titan partner forwarded me an internal leak. Summit Edge was calling for an emergency board vote. Full review of the Wallace realignment model. Elena's HR records were under audit. Their empire was shaking. And I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. She called me at 11:17 p.m., the time she used to text "I'm coming home late" with 3 dots and no kiss emoji. I let it ring twice before picking up. "Elena," I said. There was a pause. Just breathing. That tight silence of someone rehearsing their tone. "You made your point," she said finally, her voice flat. "Now what?" I leaned back in my chair, watching the city lights flicker outside my apartment. The same apartment she once refused to move into because it was too far from downtown. Funny how distance becomes convenience when the lies run out of road. "That depends," I said. "You ready to admit what you did?" Another pause. "What I did," she repeated like the words offended her. "I didn't kill anyone, Nathan. I signed off on a restructure. Something I had every right to do in my position." "You signed off on me," I snapped. "You destroyed my name in a company I helped build while you were sleeping with the guy who couldn't even spell the word logistics 2 years ago." "I didn't expect it to go down like that," she muttered. "I thought it would be cleaner." "Yeah, betrayal's never clean." That struck something. Her tone changed, sharper, more desperate. "You think you're some saint now? You were married to your job. You never saw me. Never noticed anything was wrong." "I noticed," I said. "But I didn't expect the person I trusted most to use my loyalty as a weapon." There was a pause. I heard the sound of ice clinking in a glass. Of all the things that hit me the hardest. She was still calm. Still sipping wine. Still playing controlled. She never called me Nathan when we fought. But tonight she did. "Nathan, we can end this before it gets worse. I walk. You move on. No more fire." I stared at the ceiling. "You still don't get it," I said softly. "You burned down my life. I didn't start this fire." And then I said it. The line I'd waited weeks to say. "You didn't just give me a chance, Elena. You freed me." She didn't reply. Just silence. Then click. She hung up. And I knew right then the final pieces were falling. Because people like Elena don't call when they're in control. They call when the water's rising. Monday morning, 9:02 a.m. I didn't send an email. I didn't post a statement. I didn't need to. Because someone else did it for me. A former Summit Edge insider, anonymous, of course, leaked a PDF to a popular industry forum. A 42-page internal audit report titled, "Unauthorized Attribution and Structural Misappropriation Within the Wallace Realignment Model." The file included timestamped emails, calendar invites, and a full timeline of how Summit's new logistics plan was built on the exact framework I designed. Word for word. Even the header formatting matched. But the kicker? Page 17. An internal memo from Elena Carter authorizing Dean Wallace to present logistics streamlining concepts previously developed by Mr. Nathan Carter under the unified title of Wallace Realignment Model for Ease of Board Presentation. They tried to white label my legacy. And now the entire industry knew it. My phone buzzed nonstop. Former clients, executives, journalists, even some of the board members I hadn't spoken to in years. Most of them had the same question. "Did you leak this?" I gave them all the same answer, no. But I stand by every word of it. By noon, Summit Edge issued a public statement. The kind wrapped in legal ambiguity and corporate apology. "We are conducting a thorough investigation into recent allegations of attribution misconduct. Dean Wallace has been placed on temporary leave. Effective immediately." They didn't mention Elena. Not yet. But by 3:30 p.m. that changed. A second leak hit the press, this one more personal. Photos. Messages. A whistleblower from IT had dumped Elena's HR chat logs with Dean, the late-night exchanges, the booking overlaps, the off-site strategy weekends that didn't include a single team member. Someone inside wanted her gone. And they weren't being subtle. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just watched. Because revenge isn't about spectacle. It's about timing. And my timing was perfect. But there was one thing left to do. A message I drafted weeks ago. A message I never planned to send unless things reached a breaking point. I opened my laptop, typed out the final line. "To the Summit Edge board, I have no intention of returning. But I do intend to expand Titan Freight's footprint, starting with your territory." Then I hit send. Because they needed to know. The man they tried to erase? He wasn't just back. He was building a new empire. On their ruins. By Wednesday, Summit Edge was in freefall. News of the audit leak had made it to Logistics Weekly, Forbes Supply Chain, even LinkedIn trending topics. Dean's face, once plastered across industry webinars and think pieces, had quietly vanished from every page the company managed. But the real hit came internally. One by one, their long-term contracts collapsed. Westwell Medical? Gone. Cradex Shipping Group? Gone. Even Rydell Pharmaceuticals, a cornerstone client, terminated with just 5 lines. We cannot maintain partnership with a company currently under ethical review for intellectual theft. Please ensure all handovers are managed by legal. Summit's infrastructure had been built on a delicate rhythm, my rhythm. Without it, delays compounded. Drivers missed routes. Overseas shipments got flagged in customs. The whole system had been duct-taped with arrogance and wishful thinking. Elena, meanwhile, had vanished from all public channels. No social posts, no emails, nothing from her personal LinkedIn account, which once overflowed with curated leadership quotes and HR jargon. But I knew she hadn't disappeared. She was strategizing. Or trying to. That evening, I got a knock at my door. It wasn't her. It was Clay Mercer, Summit Edge's board liaison. I hadn't seen him in 2 years. He looked older. Tired. I'm not here to make a case, he said quietly. I'm here to listen. I let him in. For an hour, he sat on my couch while I laid out the entire story. From the day I saw that cold email to the night Elena called me and pretended this whole thing was a misunderstanding. I didn't dramatize. Didn't exaggerate. I just told the truth. And when I was done, Clay sighed and nodded. She's out, he said. Effective tomorrow. HR's issuing her formal separation. Legal's reviewing NDAs and potential restitution. What about Dean? I asked. Fired yesterday. We just haven't made it public yet. I stared at him. Why tell me all this? He looked me dead in the eyes. Because we made a mistake letting people like that run the show. And because we know what you're doing at Titan. The board doesn't want to lose everything. I leaned forward. So what, you want a truce? Clay hesitated. Then he said the words I didn't expect. No. We want you back. Not as an employee. As a partner. Titan's already taken half our clients. You're the future of this industry, Nathan. Let's stop pretending otherwise. For a second, the offer hung in the air like smoke. But I wasn't ready to answer. Not yet. Because before I could move forward, there was one last thing I needed to do. Talk to Elena. One final time. Face to face. She agreed to meet me at the Glass Atrium downtown, neutral ground. A place we used to come after late work nights when things still felt solid. Back when a bottle of red wine and silence between us didn't feel like a warning sign. Elena was already there when I arrived. Same sharp suit. Same perfect posture. But something had changed. Her eyes were tired. Rimmed in shadows that concealer couldn't hide. She didn't say hello. Just, you got what you wanted. I sat across from her. Didn't speak for a beat. Then, no. I didn't. She blinked, caught off guard. I didn't want to burn your career. Or destroy Summit. I didn't want to be lied to. Betrayed. Fired like garbage while my father's body was still warm. Her mouth tightened. You made choices, I continued. And I made mine. This isn't revenge, Elena. This is consequence. She laughed bitter, hollow. You always talked about loyalty like it was currency. But you never once asked yourself if I was happy. I tilted my head. So your solution was sleeping with my boss and signing my termination behind my back? I didn't plan it like that, she snapped. It wasn't some grand betrayal. It started simple. Conversations. Coffee. Validation. I stood up. You wanted out, you could have said it. You didn't have to torch my life on the way. She looked up at me then, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I saw it. Not cruelty. Not arrogance. Regret. I thought he'd replace what you stopped giving me, she said. But all he gave me was emptiness. And I traded a man who built something real for one who faked everything. Silence. Then she whispered, you were right. About the fire. I burned everything. I nodded slowly. And said the words I knew would end it all. You didn't just kill what we had. You freed me to become the man I should have been long ago. Elena swallowed hard. So that's it. That's it. And I walked away. No anger. No goodbye. Just a man leaving behind the ruins of something already dead. Outside, the city moved around me like nothing had happened. But inside, everything had changed. Because closure doesn't come from apologies. It comes when you stop needing them. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of what Elena said, but because of what she didn't. No apology. No real ownership. Just a last-ditch attempt to rewrite the ending. Like she could still shape the story she set on fire. but I'd taken back the pen. The next morning, I walked into Titan's HQ early, before the buzz, before the noise. I stood alone in the empty bullpen, watching sunlight bleed across glass and steel. This wasn't just a new job. It was a new life. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt peace. Marcus, my director, found me on the top floor. "You're early," he said, sipping coffee. "Couldn't sleep," I replied. He gave me a long look. "The Summit Edge board's making moves. Internal sources say they're dismantling the Wallace model. Rumors are they're even rebranding completely." I nodded. "They have to. They also know what you built here," Marcus said. Clay Mercer called again. "Wants a joint venture proposal. Said the board's willing to greenlight a full regional alliance under your leadership. They're bleeding too fast to play proud now." I didn't answer immediately. Just looked out the window. You don't rebuild with people who watched you drown. But maybe you buy their land and plant something better. "Let's draft a proposal," I said. "But I want full operational control. No oversight. And I want Summit's regional contracts, all of them, permanently transferred to Titan." Marcus smiled. "Cold. Fair," I corrected. "They gambled on betrayal. Let them live with the cost." That afternoon, I called in my team. Every person I'd brought over from Summit Edge. Every name Dean had dismissed. Every expert Elena had ignored. We weren't just launching a division anymore. We were launching a network. Fleet upgrades. Route optimization tech. AI-integrated load balancing. The systems I'd designed years ago but was never allowed to fully deploy were now getting the oxygen they deserved. I wasn't playing small anymore. I wasn't defending what I'd built. I was expanding it. And every mile of growth was a silent message to the people who buried me. You didn't bury a man. You planted something bigger. The formal collapse of Summit Edge didn't come with fireworks. It came with silence. One by one, their accounts disappeared from the platforms that mattered. Clients ghosted them. Internal departments fractured. Glassdoor reviews went nuclear. Anonymous leaks kept dripping out, salary freezes, executive infighting, legal threats whispered behind soundproof boardroom doors. I didn't lift a finger. Didn't need to. They'd infected themselves. All I did was stop treating the disease. What sealed it, though, what finally drove the last nail in the coffin, was a press announcement from Titan. Titan Freight and Logistics is proud to launch its regional command expansion, led by Nathan Carter, Vice President of Network Strategy. This initiative includes full integration of over 20 legacy contracts, restructured under Titan's banner. No gloating. No blood. Just facts. A new era. Built on competence, not charisma. I got a text that night from a number I hadn't saved, but I knew who it was. "Elena. You won." I lost everything. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. But then, minutes later, a voicemail. Curiosity got the best of me. Her voice was shaky, stripped of the polish she always wore like armor. "I never thought it would go like this," she said. "I thought we'd come out the other side, maybe not together, but still standing. I was wrong. About everything. About you." A pause. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. I just want you to know. I regret it. All of it. I destroyed something good. I see that now. We could have. Click. It cut off there. Maybe she ran out of words. Maybe she finally realized silence was the only thing left. I stared at the phone for a long while. Then deleted the message. Not out of anger. Out of peace. Because I'd already forgiven her. Not for her sake. For mine. Some people think revenge means shouting in the streets, burning everything down. But the best revenge? Is never needing to look back. The Summit Edge office, that sleek glass box where my career was sentenced with a 2-line email, was shuttered by month's end. Elena was never seen in that building again. Dean tried to fight his termination. Filed wrongful dismissal paperwork, tried to pin everything on her. Claimed miscommunication, stress, incomplete oversight. But the audit records didn't lie. Neither did the emails, or the whisper trail from internal compliance. He was escorted out by security on a Tuesday. A guy I used to buy coffee for now runs his desk. Poetic. Titan moved fast. The new regional network was anchored at the old Summit location, and the irony wasn't lost on anyone. We didn't just take over clients. We absorbed their infrastructure, their trucks, their storage contracts, even their best-performing junior staff, the ones Elena and Dean tried to cut. The building was gutted, rebranded. New signage went up overnight. Titan Logistics, Eastern Operations Command. The same lobby I walked out of in silence? Now mine. And the office where Elena used to hold her quarterly performance reviews? I turned it into a break room. A place where people actually talk, collaborate, Feel heard. The first day I stepped into that lobby as vice president, people clapped. Not because I demanded it. Because they knew. They remembered. What I built. What I survived. What I became. Clay Mercer from the summit board came to shake my hand, one final gesture of clean closure. You were right, he said. About all of it. We picked the wrong horse. I nodded firm. And I made sure you'd never forget. I didn't need to humiliate them. I didn't need to scream. The building, the title, the momentum, it said everything. And just as I walked back to my new office, a familiar figure stood by the elevators. Elena, dressed in all black, resume folder in hand. She opened her mouth to speak, but I stopped her with a glance. You don't need to shout when gravity does the work. She lowered her head and walked out. No tears, no scene, just consequences. I stood at the window of my new office, the one that used to belong to Dean, watching trucks roll out of the lot. Movement, precision, order. Everything I'd spent my career building, now under my name, under my command. Not stolen. Earned. A year ago, I was just a number in the system. A man too loyal for his own good, betrayed by the two people who knew me best. A husband dismissed. A leader erased. A builder discarded. Yeah? I was vice president of Titan's fastest-growing division. I had a team who believed in the mission, not just the paycheck. A network that stretched across 5 states and growing. Clients called me, not the other way around. My name was finally tied to the system I created. And the woman who tried to replace me? Gone. Blacklisted from every logistics firm that mattered. Word got around. Quietly, yes, but effectively. A few HR directors passed her resume around like a cautionary tale. Elena texted once more. I made a mistake. We could have rebuilt everything. I stared at it for a long time. Then typed back. You didn't give me a second chance. You gave me freedom. And thanks to that, I became the man I was always meant to be. I hit send. Then blocked her number. Some things don't need a second season. Outside, the loading yard hummed. Men and women in Titan jackets moved with purpose. Some of them used to work under me at Summit. Now they stood beside me, rebuilding something stronger, something real. I thought about my father. His words came back like scripture, carved into memory. Be like a stone near the river. Let it rage. Let it roar. But never let it move you unless you choose to step. I chose my step. And I never looked back. Because in the end, revenge isn't fire. It's foundation. It's the quiet satisfaction of building something so solid, so undeniable, that even your enemies are forced to watch it rise.